r/ask Reddit. What is the greatest hitshow you have ever witnessed? I was at a party once on an island with a group of friends. When another group of guys came. They were all bigger and older and drunk before they got there. They kept disrespecting us and the owner's house. And we ended up getting in a brawl with them in the driveway. Even though they were all bigger, they used rocks and bottles. My friend got a croquet mallet and hit a dude full force in the forehead. I will never forget the sound it made. And everyone just stopped fighting. One of the girls started screaming, "Oh my god, he's dead. He's dead." And all the rest of them started to cry and ran into the house. Cops and EMS came. Cops arrested my friend on attempted murder and EMS took the downed guy to a helicopter pad to get immediate attention from hospital. Turns out the guy had a fractured skull and bleeding from the brain. And the only reason he wasn't a veggie was because of the helicopter. DA dropped charges against my friend, citing self-defense. I have another one. Oh man. There was this one time. I had a busier than usual day. I just dropped off a client at the airport and had another one that had landed and was waiting to be picked up. At this point I already had to hit pretty bad. But I figured this guy was only going downtown to his office, so I would be okay. As soon as I picked him up though, he told me that we were going across town about 40 minutes away to his house. That was the longest ride of my life. I felt like I was in labor. After we took the exit, things took a turn for the worse. Something started to happen to me that I have never experienced before. The hit started to crown out of my asshole, and with all my focus I held it back. Then my sphincter would like suck it back up, and my stomach would make this motorboat sound. We pulled up to his house, and I got out of the car to get his bags. I must have looked like the hunchback of Notre Dame slithering to the back of the car. I think I hit a little as I struggled with the bag. Then this asshole starts thanking me for the ride and taking his sweetest time taking money out of his wallet. I know if I don't get out of there now then I'm going to get an extremely hitty, yep, review on Yelp and Google. So I yell for him to pay me next time as I run back to the car and smash out of there. I've already picked a place to hit. The McDonald's across the street from his house. I ran a red auto getting to the McD's. And in the parking lot is when it happened. I couldn't control my bowels any longer and started to evacuate them right then and there. I didn't even pull into a parking spot. I just put the car in park and ran to the McD's. The ducking door was locked. I started banging on the window and got the attention of some doofus putting chairs up on tables. He unlocked the door to presumably let me know that they were closed for the night. But I didn't hear what he said because I just pushed right past him and ran to the hitter. I still laugh when I think about what I did in there. I had all sorts of hit on my pants. I did the best job cleaning myself up. Went home and took the rest of the day off. After that pickup, every time I need to use the bathroom with a client, I'll just pull over in a gas station if it's getting critical. I must have looked like the hunchback of Notre Dame slithering to the back of the car. This literally made me choke up with laughter. The 2016 US election. As someone from Europe, it's like watching two trains head straight towards each other at mind-bending speeds. But at least I have the outside perspective. You guys are stuck in the trains. Help us. I've told this story before, but it was a pretty good hitshow. The first wedding I ever went to was just a raging disaster. I didn't even know the couple. The groom was a friend of the guy I was dating, so I got dragged along as the plus one. The wedding was out on a golf course in summer, so it was hotter than hell out there. We wait. And we wait. And we wait some more, and I start thinking maybe the bride ran off. Then this white limo comes flying up the drive and literally screeches to a halt burning off some tire. Turns out the limo company forgot to pick up the bride. It's 2 hours later than it should been at this point when we finally get started. So the sun's going down. Naturally people do what they do and start taking pictures. And that's when the maid of honor hits the floor and has a grand mal seizure because the flashes set her off. So they call an ambulance and carry on with the ceremony, which was really awkward because the paramedics are there with this poor girl and the bride is saying her I do's and keeps looking over and shouting, "Tracy, I love you. I hope you're okay." I have no idea if her name was Tracy or not. I gave up and went home after the ceremony because it was late and I had stuff to do. The guy I was dating stayed for the reception though. According to him, the bride's mother got completely hit-faced drunk and started screaming that her daughter's wedding had been ruined. So she turned over the table with all the gifts on it and stomped on as many of them as she could. It's a pity because I'm sure the couple were nice people that just had terrible luck. But when I think of hitshows, that's the one that comes to mind first. Edit. Since this blew up, just addressing a few things that keep coming up. 1. I agree. I wouldn't wait for 2 hours for my limo either. This was 1999, so cell phones weren't readily available, but you'd think the bride would have called the venue and asked someone at the golf course to grab any number of people sitting out on their lawn to come pick her up. Driving herself may have been prohibitive because, as I recall, the dress was kind of puffy. But I seriously don't remember. I barely remember what I wore last week. 2. The maid of honor and her epilepsy. I assume she thought the ceremony was going to start earlier when flash photography wouldn't be needed due to the natural light. Then maybe when things started getting later she thought it would be too awkward to bail. I have no clue. Like I said, I don't know these people at all, and so I've got no ideas into their thought processes. 3. I was just sharing this to kill the last 15 minutes of work because I'm getting married myself, and this is sort of the metric I'm holding myself to, as long as there's no medical mishaps. Missing people or drunken tantrums, we're cool. If people want to not believe it, then hey, no skin off my nose. Much of that is just unfortunate. But why is it almost always the mother of the bride with the wanton crazy? That kind of hit is insane. The moms are trying to have the wedding they always wanted, but couldn't because their mom was trying to have the wedding she always wanted. It's a vicious cycle. Edit. Obligatory thank you for the gold. I would like to take this moment to thank my mother for crying when I got engaged because she hadn't had her facelift yet. In college, some guys all took hits in the same toilet and then put a huge firework in it and exploded the toilet. We saw them running out of the toilets and up the corridor laughing, then shortly afterwards heard this almighty bang. Myself and a couple of others went in to see WTF happened. Literal hitshow. Firecrapper. Well, Randy Bobundy, there's a hit storm blowing. St. Andrew's Hall. Downtown Detroit. Year 2000. After buying a pre-sale ticket to an electronic show and waiting outside in the freezing cold for 2 hours, we left, only to discover a back door and just walked right in. There were drugs everywhere, which isn't that strange. But I mean, people were shooting up and snorting off any flat surface they could find. One addict looked like he was dead on the floor and no one seemed to care. Other people were barfing everywhere. All this is going on among about 1,000 people dancing and raving. I see a couple fights break out. 3 people get carried out while completely passed out and obviously odding on drugs. People having X on the dance floor. And then, all of a sudden, all the lights came on and the entire place is flooded by D and ATF agents with automatic weapons drawn. They weren't shouting instructions. So I just bolted the duck out of there into the freezing cold parking lot. Earlier in the night, I told my friends that if it went down we were to meet at a specific lamppost in the parking lot. They made fun of me for acting like their mom. But sure enough, everyone in the group ended up there and we left immediately to go an after party. I assure everyone, this did actually happen. I remember it very vividly because it's the only time I've ever had a gun pointed at me. St. Andrew's Hall varies a lot based on what promoter is putting on the show. When you said electronic show, I thought you meant an electronics trade show, and I was confused about why so many people would be shooting up drugs there. E3 has gone way downhill since it moved to Detroit. A few years back I walked into a nightclub bathroom to witness a rather inebriated patron leaning at a near 45 degrees against one of the urinals. I stepped up 2 urinals over, as courtesy dictates. Moments later, in my peripheral vision, it looks like this guy has either got a second wind, pulling some new dance moves, or is performing an exorcism. I guess it was the latter, as seconds later he's vomiting like Linda Blair. Unfortunately, in his state his dance moves are pure instinct and he goes to cover his mouth. Midstream, he ends up pissing all over his jeans and shoes. He notices this, so he goes back to grab himself, but still in cover mouth mode. It ends with him sort of cupping his hands around his crotch. So has just catching most of his vomit around his member. I'm now looking at a guy clutching his stomach contents around his junk. Then the flow starts again. It's like the saddest fountain in the world. The worst part was the look on the attendant's face. No amount of CK1 was sorting this out. Edit. I can confirm this was in the UK circa 2006. Runk guy was Danish. After he was removed, we found him some 2 hours later with his friends. He was passed out at a taxi rank around the corner as no one would take him. I just imagine the room slowing down for the attendant with dramatic music in the background, while images flash between the ongoing hitshow and flashbacks of his past, while thinking about what better things he could have done with his life, to not be in that situation. Hello, darkness. My old friend. There are a mighty number of posts here already, but I feel that I have to share this one. My sister is an RN and recently got pulled to a wedding where her boyfriend was friends with somebody. Anyway, standard wedding going on. Maybe a little more drinking early on than as usual, but pretty boring. She gets up from the table and tells her boyfriend that she is going to the bathroom and will be right back. So she heads to the can and goes in and is punched in the face with odor. She finds a girl passed out in the toilet who has not only puked everywhere, but also hit herself. Keep in mind this is like 8 PM. So anyway, my sister being the consummate professional she is just starts dealing with it. She tries to get the door of the stall open, but it is locked and they can't get this girl out. She's concerned for her choking, so they tell someone to get the maintenance guy and also call 911. The maintenance arrives and he has no idea how to open the door. So my sister then tells him to go get a ladder and something long to flick the latch. He doesn't understand as he only speaks Chinese. So they have to go out in the wedding and find someone who speaks Chinese to translate. He comes back with a chair and a broom and opens the stall. The ambulance is not going to be coming anytime soon because it's a Saturday and drunk passed out at a wedding is a low priority. So anyway they get the door open and they pull her out. She is covered in her own hit and vomit. So being a nurse, she is no stranger to poop and gets some gloves from the cleaning guy and just starts tidying her up. The way she told it went something like, I just wanted to pee, but here I'm touching a stranger's vag. So she gets tidied up and the girl kind of comes around. She says the ambulance will come and take care of her. She doesn't want the ambulance, but too bad, so sad. It's coming. She can refuse treatment when it arrives, but it's coming. At this point, the girl just starts projectile vomiting and hitting an unholy fire hydrant of diarrhea all over the bathroom floor. Like this is Family Guy level of cartoon soilage. My sister kind of jumps out of the way and hops up on the counter while she redecorates the room with diarrhea on its own. This is pretty ducked up, but not the worst thing ever. Enter runk number 2. So the girl on the floor turning inside out is not alone. Her nearly equally wasted sister shows up to the bathroom and sees the vile hit-soaked floor with her sister in the middle of it. Instead of doing the rational, even runk person thing, if you know, showing some concern, she instead begins to verbally berate her passed out hit fountain of a sister, who is, by the way, still hitting. She is calling her a slut and telling her how dare she drink so much she hit her pants. She then goes to kick her sister, slips, falls, hits her head on the bathroom counter and knocks herself the duck out. There are now 2 members of the same family lying in the puke hit puddle on the floor. She now has to call 911 again because of the head injury and change the urgency of the call because they are still not there. So at this point pooper starts coming around. Gavin finally emptied herself of everything and she wants to just go home. She is completely unaware of her physical appearance and there is no way she's going to be able to go out because she is completely naked and covered in poo. Someone is going to say something. At this time, the bride's mother then comes into the bathroom and freaks out at the scene. She has a panic attack, but is able to comport herself long enough to not fall and poop. My sister is managing 3 medical cases in a bathroom full of hit when the ambulance arrives. The paramedics come in and do their boring paramedic thing. Poop girl is now aware of herself and refuses treatment. Paramedics say okay and begin to leave. My sister then yells at Poop girl that she is going to get on the stretcher and go to the hospital. This convinces her and she agrees to go. Before they leave she asks what hospital they are going to and the Poop girl asks her to call her mom. So my sister then called the mother of two complete strangers and explained this whole hitty situation and that she needed to meet them at the hospital and bring a change of clothes for both girls. Finally able to kind of take a breather, my sister is about to leave the scene of the crime and tell her boyfriend they are leaving when a half-drunk lawyer enters and threatens to sue her for mishandling the situation. After helping two strangers covered in their own hit, she is now being threatened with a lawsuit. Meanwhile her boyfriend is like, "Where the duck did you go at the table?" She goes back to the table and tells him they are leaving, having never been able to pee herself. That I felt I needed to share, even if it's thousands of posts down. Your sister is a goddamned hero. I'm a nurse. Can confirm that dealing with two people covered in fesses in a confined space whilst a friend/relative is having a panic attack with someone else threatening a lawsuit at you whilst you're trying to convey the importance of a situation to someone over the phone, who has zero vested interest and many other things on their mind, all whilst you were happily minding your own business on the way to do something unrelated to the whole scene. Happens many times each working day. It's like our primary skill set. New Year's Eve. Quite a few years ago, my oldest daughter, then 5 years old, was staying up till midnight for the first time. Foreshadowing, she spent the whole evening basically sucking down soda and shoving chips etc in her mouth. Right after the ball dropped she fell asleep on the couch, so I picked her up to take her upstairs. I've got my arms under her butt and she has hers around my neck and her head is on my right shoulder. I got as far as the kitchen when she made a weird noise and I felt her stomach move. Duck. Vomit starts pouring out of her mouth, down my back and all over the kitchen floor. Since it's falling from 5 feet in the air, it's also splattering up the walls. My wife is yelling at me to take our daughter to the bathroom, but that would spread the puke further. So for a good 3 minutes I just stood in a puddle of vomit letting it all come out and run down my back. When it was all out I let my uncontaminated wife take my daughter to wipe her face and put her to bed. I stripped off, threw my clothes in the wash and mopped the kitchen floor and walls in my underwear. As a daughter who pretty much did the same thing to my dad 48 years ago. Thank you for being such a great dad. My 80-year-old father still tells people about the time I buffed all over him. As a dad of 2 young children, I'd say being buffed on by your kids is pretty par for the course. Of course, some people, likely your father, get it worse than others. Ducking, like and subscribe.